Okay, today's Unit 1, Day 4, solving literal equations. So I know that we have these steps here, but sometimes it also depends on the problem. So I don't really want you to go through and just 100% write them down. Yes. Okay, I'll get it. Hold on. So I know that I have steps here in this slide, but I don't necessarily want you to write them down because it also can go case by case. Every equation is different. What I want you to realize is what we're doing is the same thing we did last week, except now we're looking at literal equations. So your big difference here is literal equations have multiple variables. So you'll see here we have x, b, c, and e. Okay, we have all of those letters, which does make things a little different. Okay, so here I'm going to tell you which letter to solve for. It's not always x. Okay, so right now I am solving for x. Okay, what is on the same side as that x? B and c. That b minus c. Okay, and x is multiplying that, right? How do you get rid of multiplication? Divide. Lots of phones, y'all. Put them away. So I get x equals 3e over b minus c. Now, is x alone? Yes. Does anything simplify? No. So you're done. So with literal equations, it's really a lot of reorganizing your equation. Okay? Really, we didn't change anything. We just reorganized it to get x by itself. Okay? So let's look at another one. Okay. Now, on this one, we're solving for x. I want you to realize that, how do we get rid of division? Multiply. But if we multiply, we're going to have to multiply both sides by x, and then again both sides by e, and it becomes a lot of multiplication. When you have fractions on both sides, phones, y'all, put them away. When you have fractions on both sides, your best bet is to cross multiply. Okay? So what's 5 times x? And what's a times e? Just AE, a times e, however you want to say that. Now that's way less work than having to cross multiply. Now what do we do next? Divide by 5. And there's your answer. Yes? Can't really check your work like you can the other ones. Okay? I mean, technically, if you really wanted, which would be really ugly, you could decide, well, A equals 4, X equals 8, and E equals 2, and see if it equals. But you'd have to, does that make sense? So on these, you really just have to make sure you followed your steps. Like, you made sure everything you did was allowed. Okay, so let's look at this one. What are we solving for? So knowing that, what do I need to get rid of? What makes this, we hate fractions, right? Y'all, the easiest thing to do here is always try to get rid of your fractions, okay? Now, there's no addition or subtraction here. I mean, technically this is addition, but it's being multiplied because it's in parentheses. So we want to get rid of that fraction first. How do I get rid of that fraction? Multiply by what? Yep. So we're going to multiply both sides by 2. That 2 cancels this 2. And I get 2a equals hb plus b. Now, why did I not have to put that 1? Yeah, because 1h and h are the same thing. Okay, now I'm trying to get this h by itself, so what do I need to do? Well, this is 8h times b plus b, so can I divide b plus b? Now h is alone, nothing simplifies, so I'm done. Okay, so I realize this is the exact same problem, but I'm solving for a different letter. What am I solving for this time? B. So what am I going to do first? We need to get rid of the fraction. How do we do that? By 2. This cancels that, and I get 2a equals h b plus b. Now, before I can get that b by itself, I have to get rid of the parentheses. What is preventing me from getting rid of the parentheses? The h. So how do I get rid of that h? Divide. So those h's cancel. I get 2a over h equals b plus b, because now I don't need that parentheses. There's nothing in front keeping it. So we're just going to subtract the little b, and we're done. So b equals 2a over h minus b. Okay, so let's look at the next one. Okay, who can tell me what formula this is? P equals 2L plus 2W. Think about math problems, real life. What does P stand for? Perimeter. 2 lengths plus 2 widths. That's adding all 4 sides. Okay, so knowing that, I'm solving for L. I'm terrible at writing these L's, so I'm going to do a capital L when I'm writing it, because if not, it looks like 21. Okay, so what do you think we need to get rid of first? The what? There's 2 different ways we can do this. So somebody said the 2, right? We can get rid of the 2. How would you get rid of the 2 in both of those terms? Huh? Yeah, could we divide this whole side by 2 and this whole side by 2? So that would give me, because here, this is the same thing as saying 2L over 2 plus 2W over 2. So doesn't that just cancel the 2's? Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to show you why that was the easier way. Okay? Technically, we could have done it a different way. This is the only class that I've done it this way, because nobody's noticed that. So good catch. Okay, so my other classes have subtracted 2W first, which gives you P minus 2W equals 2L. Okay? And then you'll divide by 2. But I'm going to separate that division because couldn't this technically simplify? So since that simplifies, we get L equals P over 2 minus W. Do you see you get the same answer? If you can see it. I think the orange way is easier, but it's really just whatever you think. If you think to subtract first, subtract first. If you realize to divide first, divide first. You get the same answer. It won't be wrong. Just do whatever you notice first. Does that make sense? Okay. Huh? Yeah, it's not bad. Now, I will tell you it does start to get a little confusing when practicing. I'm not going to say this is like the easiest. That's why we have all period tomorrow also. Yes, it is nice. I don't want you to think that it's much different than what we did last week. The only difference is you can't simplify and you can't really check your work. Okay? So here, what are we solving for? How do I get that d squared off of the denominator? We can multiply. Okay, so I want you to realize technically you could even cross multiply here. They're going to give you the same answer. So if you wanted to cross multiply, you would put this over 1. Okay, if you wanted to not cross multiply, wouldn't you just multiply both sides by d squared? So if we do times d squared times d squared, those cancel and we get f, or d squared f equals g m m. Now, if you cross multiplied, 1 times GMM is just GMM. F times D squared is just D squared F. So do you see how it gives you the same thing? Okay, so whatever you think of is what you should do. And now divide. What are we going to divide by? It is a lot of letters. And I think it gets frustrating because you can't simplify, and so it looks like a lot, but remember, you're just rearranging. Your goal isn't technically to simplify, it's just to rearrange, okay? Yeah. Yeah, the alphabet. My dad loves to send me all like the corny math jokes about like letters and math, and I'm like, whatever, Dad. That's how I get paid. Go away. Okay. Is this one much different? No. So what do we want to do? Okay, we can multiply both sides by what? By 2g. We're going to multiply by the denominator because we're trying to cancel the fraction. So that cancels, and we get 2gk equals wv squared. Now what do I do? Now, not subtract. When there's no symbol, what's happening? It is multiplying, so what's the opposite? Divide. Those cancel. I get w equals 2gk over v squared. So I'm going to do one more practice problem, and then I'm going to show y'all one on your paper, just because it is a little confusing, and then I'm going to let y'all practice, okay? Whoop. So A equals P plus PRT. We're going to solve for T. So what do you want to do? They're not exactly the same. So we can subtract P, or technically you could divide, but here it's weird because it cancels to 1. So it's not as simple as the other one when it comes to dividing. It would still work though, 100%. Okay. Trying to get T by itself, so what am I going to do? Divide by PR. I'm going to go ahead and separate because these P's cancel. What's anything divided by itself? Like 12 divided by 12 is 1. A million divided by a million is a million. 6 divided by 6 is 6, or 1, sorry. Did I say a million? A million divided by a million is 1. Oh my goodness. Okay, so anything divided by itself is 1, so this becomes 1 over r. So I have A over P r minus 1 over r. Because the p's canceled. Okay, I'm going to leave this one up here, so if you're working online, don't worry. We're going to look at number 17. Because this doesn't look bad, but it has like a funky ending to it. Okay, here's our problem, and we're solving for r. So y'all are going to walk me through it. What should I do? We need to get rid of the parentheses, right? But yeah, we're going to solve it for r. So we don't, huh? We could distribute the p, but could we also just divide the p on both sides? Because then we can get rid of the parentheses. Both ways, technically. So a over p equals 1 plus rt. Now what? Subtract 1. So okay, a over p minus 1 equals rt. Now what do I need to do to get that r by itself? Divide by t. Now this is why this one gets weird. Is if I put a divide t, doesn't that look weird because you have a fraction on top of a fraction? So I want you to realize, like, isn't this the same thing as multiplying by 1 times t, or 1 over t? Divide t is the same thing as multiplying by 1 over t. Okay, so here the t's cancel. Here 1 times a is a, t times p is pt. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1 over t. There's your answer. Okay, now you could have distributed the p. You'd get the same answer. It's just whatever you see to move, as long as you do it appropriately, it'll work.